Q92, Annie in the Morning with Ryan. We have a very special guest in studio with us this morning. His name is Chuck, and he is the owner of the 930 plan. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning, Annie. How are you?
Good. So let's start off with the number one thing. What is the 930 plan?
So I recently had this question asked of me, and it's funny. They're like, can I go to a bank and buy a 930 plan? 930 plan is really just a play on two terms, right? The most popular vehicle to invest for retirement tends to be a 401k plan. The most popular vehicle to invest for kids' education is a 529 plan, right? So these two plans have a lot of flaws, a lot of tax implications about deferring taxes. And that was a wonderful idea 30 years ago when taxes were high. But now taxes are low, and in the future, taxes are going to be higher. Our federal debt has already made that a foregone conclusion. So the 930 plan isn't something that you can go and buy from somebody. The 930 plan is something that my team came up with.
Oh, interesting.
And it's add the number 401, the 401k, to the number 529. And what do you get?
930.
Yeah.
Luckily I have my coffee, so I can actually do that.
Yeah. Our logo is a clock, the 930, right? And really what 930 is, it's about educating people about taxes and about how your money is taxed, how it's going to be taxed, the penalties involved with the 401ks and the 529s if they're not used under the perfect set of rules that they make you use them. And the 930 plan just unchains everything, right? It's just a different way of saving money, right? It's a new brand that we're launching. My core company is called Max It Out. I generally, with Max It Out, work with clients who are closer to retirement, maybe 8, 10, 12 years out from retirement. And we're unwinding a lot of the 401k stuff and the deferred money, right? And I thought, well, there's a new generation of people. And rather than them just following, this is what our parents did, so that's what I should do, right? And so the thought process was, let's start teaching younger people who are starting out how to avoid making those mistakes before they make them.
You know, Chuck, I have to tell you, I look back to, I'm on the older end of the millennial, but I look back to my time like going into college, putting myself through college, and no one ever spoke to me about my financial future. It was, go take out that private loan so you can go to this school and blah, blah, blah. And then you start going and you're just trying to make a good salary and pay off all that school debt. And then all of a sudden you have a family and you start thinking, oh my gosh, and 10 years went by. Right. And now you have to, like you said, undo everything you did. Why not get ahead of that right out of school? So if I'm someone looking to do that, how do I get involved in the 930 plan? Like, what's my first step?
First step is you go to the website, 930plan.com, right? And really what we look for is people who actively want to educate themselves, right? You got to want it.
You have to want it, to be helped,
sure, right? Sure. And then you start thinking, right? Okay, well, where, first of all, am I saving, right? A lot of people aren't, right? So if you're not, the first advice is start saving. I don't care where you save, start saving something, right? Because otherwise you're going to be working to your grave, right? Yeah. So you got to save something, right? But if you are saving and you didn't know where to save and your business had a 401k plan and you're like, okay, I'm just going to put $300 a paycheck or $700 a month or whatever it is, right? Think about that. Because right now you're deferring that money and taxes are really, really low, right? If you're a married couple in New York or in America and you're making $120,000 right now, your federal effective tax rate is 13%. 13%. I know it seems higher because you are deferring some money to the 401k and you got FICA taxes and you've got state taxes and it feels like a lot more of your paycheck is going away. But the federal effective rate for 120 grand, that's 10 grand a month, right? You're not killing it, but you're not starving either. You're paying 13%. If you go back to the late 70s and you find a couple that was making $65,000 a year, right? They probably have the same lifestyle because of inflation, right? They're probably living the same way that the couple making 120 today. Their federal effective tax rate was 55%.
But how did we get there? Like, how did we get to where we are now? I mean,
Reagan tax cuts.
Okay, there you go. All right. Yeah. So when my mindset, it's like, everything was so much cheaper back then because of the cost of living. So I would have never have thought until I spoke to you just now that back in 78, that it was 54%, and now it's 13. That's opposite
Same person,
of mine
right?
thinking.
Same
Yeah.
couple, right? Yeah. So think about, I make $100,000 and 54 of it goes to the federal government. Oh, now I got to give New York State 6 of it. But also think about the times, right? In 1978, that also I used that year for a real reason. The real reason was that's the first 401k plan that ever came out. The government, in a tax code change, gave us the ability to defer income. Why not? If I was going to get paid 55% of it to the government, I don't want to pay it. I'll defer it.
Yeah.
Right? Till later. Right? And there was another unique thing going on then. The stock market was like down here. Right? There was nothing. So you had all-time high taxes, not all-time high. It was higher during the World Wars, World War II and Korea and Vietnam. I mean, you think 54 is high? If you made $200,000 in 1944, you paid 92% federal tax.
Wow.
You were doing really good too.
Yeah.
If you made that money.
I get it, but Ronald Reagan was the #1 actor in Hollywood in the 40s, making $100,000 a movie, and he'd make 2 movies and stop. Because California's state tax was 9% and the federal tax was 92. And if he made 201,000, he'd have to go back to his second movie to start paying the government for the third movie.
That's
And
awesome.
ironically, 40 years later, he's the president. And he's like, yeah, that's dumb. Let's lower taxes. The more money you make, the more you stimulate the economy. Why would we, would we discourage talented people who can make money from making money?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the genesis of it. But it caused another problem. What it caused was the politicians didn't stop spending it frivolously, right? The one thing, I don't care if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you don't care about politics. The one thing we all agree on is they don't do a very good job of spending money, right? They're foolish with it, right?
No, they can print their own. Well,
exactly.
They think. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. We just print more. And that's what they're doing. And now our federal debt is reaching $30 trillion. The average person doesn't even know what $1 trillion is, right? It's crazy. Right?
It's also the reason why that is because it's so unrealistic.
You can't even.
You're never going to grab that and
Nope.
be able to say, hey, this is what you're never going to. So that is why we have this huge problem.
Correct.
But that's also why the bigger thing that you can do for yourself is to focus on your financial future and how you can bring all these things together. You know, especially if you have kids. And I have to be blunt. I didn't do my research when I had my son on where to save for college. I just heard 529. That's what everybody else does.
And
As my father told me from the time I was a child, stop being a follower. You got to be a leader. Don't be a follower. And here I am being a follower. And I come to find out that, as you mentioned, that's just not a smart plan.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you asked your accountant, he'd tell you the same thing.
He told me it was not smart at all.
Right. Yeah, and because if your kid decides to build a company and do something that has nothing to do with
trade,
anything.
Wow,
yeah. I have 2 older children, right? 32 and 31. Right. My 32-year-old went to school for business administration. She went for 4 years. She went out of state and she's got a bunch of student loans.
Oh, yeah.
Right. The 31-year-old went to a tech program for 1 year, got his diesel mechanic license, got his got certified as a diesel mechanic, got a commercial trucker license. Right. And he makes more money than she does.
See?
And he doesn't have the student debt.
I know.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is if I'm focused on obviously saving money for my son, he's 3 now, and I want to have enough to at least pay for maybe a couple semesters, and also provide for my financial future with my 401, you're saying you're going to bring all this together into the 930 plan.
Sure. Yeah.
And help me have a better plan for life.
Because the 401k, if you have an emergency in life and you need to go get some money and you're not 59 and a half yet, it doesn't fall into their little code, you're going to pay a penalty. Your money.
Yeah.
Tax and penalty.
And like the college plan, if they don't go to college, you can't get it, right?
Well, you get it, but you got to pay the taxes on it. You got to pay a penalty.
Wow.
Right?
Now, again, we have Chuck, the owner of the 930 plan. When I go to your website, now what do I need to have? Like, as far as what paperwork, what things do I need?
Nothing. Quite honestly, just start educating yourself, right?
Okay.
And then I got a little link to my calendar, and quite honestly, schedule an appointment. Right?
Okay.
And I think they're set up as half-hour appointments. And really what I'll do is I'll just start educating you, right? I'll give you a book to read usually, right? If I get to know you enough and I know a little about you, there's probably a half dozen books out there that I know pretty well that can really help educate people in these areas. The Power of Zero by David McKnight is a great book, right? You want to get a little head start, go on Amazon. I think it costs $14. go on my website and give me 15 minutes of getting to know you, and I'll buy you the book.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the key is it's the more knowledge you have, the better, right?
Yeah.
I think we all lately have been living by this, like, still, I know it's an old school term, but like YOLO, I'm living for today. I'm not worrying about that 30 years from now. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, time's going fast.
Yeah.
And I need to start preparing.
Only
and
got one shot at it.
The world is constantly changing. And another thing I wanted to ask before we wrap up, because I know the big thing is the 930 plan, but also with my generation is we don't stay at the same job as often.
Yep.
So do these plans track? Like, how does
it's yours? It's individual. It has nothing to do with your company.
Okay.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the company. And like I said, you can't go to the bank and ask them what a 930 plan is. It's just something that we made up from a marketing standpoint to open people's eyes to these other plans are antiquated, right?
Okay.
So those are government plans and they have a whole bunch of rules and your money's handcuffed. And the 930 plan is just us showing you how to put your money in places that are safe. Right? It's not an investment. We're not going to make you 50%. Right? It's not Bitcoin. It's just not. Right? It's going to be slow and steady. It's for my kids want to go to school in 18 years or in 16 years or in 13 years or in 3 years, and I need a better plan. And then, I want to retire too, right? And I also got to worry about, protecting my mortgage. And if something were to happen to my wife or my husband or whatever. So we take all these things into consideration, and if you were putting, $600 a month into the 401k, and then you were putting $300 a month into the 529, and then I need to protect my family over here. No, let's talk about all those things. Let's take the $1 amount. Let's put it in the same direction. Let's take the handcuffs off. Let's be tax smart about it. And let's have you get access to it when you want it, when you need it, for the things you're going to use it for. And if your kid doesn't go to college and instead you want to give them a down payment on a house, or you just want to use it for your retirement, it's there.
You're speaking my language. Now, that sentence didn't completely spell out what the 930 plan is. I don't know what else will.
I've learned more in this few minutes with you, Chuck, than I have ever in my life. And I do have a bachelor's degree.
Yeah. So we have a lot we could discuss with you. So I look forward to, hopefully, Ryan and I can have you back in studio. We had to talk life insurance. So many other things we want to touch upon. But the main focus right now is the 930 plan. And we so appreciate your time this morning. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Ryan.